Theo Petron, he joins us today. He's got a related story, but he's also Kathy. Many of you know Kathy Petron from the MarkCom organization as well, and they're siblings, and she was kind enough to help facilitate this. And then joined also by their parents, Mary Ann, and do you go by Frank or is it Francis? And Frank, who are here as well. So let's welcome you to the stage, and thank you all for coming today. Great.
All right, well, good morning, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the world. I guess this is being beamed all over the place, so it's great to be back in Minnesota. Lived here for 40 years of my life and moved to Pennsylvania about 11 years ago. So it's great to be back, especially as we talked about earlier, that it's AF Awareness Month. One of the things that I've been trying to do since my ablation is talk to people in my community, in my circle of friends that have this disease, and share with them what I went through and how much better my life is. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Quick little disclaimer, I'm not a professional speaker, so you know, I kind of color outside the lines of my life quite a bit. So if I get off topic or something like that, you guys can just give me one of these weird, wacky faces, like where is he going with this? And that'll kind of be my clue to go back to my note cards here and figure out what's going on. The other thing you won't hear is a lot of the corporate mumbo jumbo that you're probably used to in your meetings. There's going to be no circling back. There's going to be no table that for later. Put a pin. Oh, that's a new one. Okay, put a pin. So those of you that have your corporate bingo cards out, just quiet if you happen to get corporate bingo, but that's not going to happen today. So this is going to be very conversational, easy type of conversation. So, all right, let's begin. So, as I stated maybe a little bit earlier, I just turned 50 in May. I'm very active, have been my entire life. Not your average heart failure patient. I think, you know, if you kind of look at me. I've looked pretty much like this since I graduated from high school. I weigh the same. I can pretty much eat, drink, and do whatever I want, and my body doesn't change. Don't hate me. It's just the way it is. Accident of birth. A great metabolism, I guess. So I am the co-owner with my girlfriend of a culinary business that keeps us very busy. We deliver customized meals to people's homes and do intimate dinner parties and cocktail parties. But it's a very active, demanding, physically grueling existence. Not to mention the fact that I work with my business partner is also my life partner. So there's a lot of crossings of streams that are in there. So, you know, when you go through your Chad's VAS score and there's like stress in there, I'm like, there's stress there. Okay, how do we manage that? I'm a very avid cyclist. Early on when I was diagnosed, I thought, oh, maybe it's from overexercise, because I used to routinely cycle a lot and at a very vigorous pace and a long distance. And my resting heart rate back then was probably about 45. So it was down there. A lot of times Melissa would say, are you alive? And my heart would go doof, doof. It was really, really inconsistent. Not inconsistent, but it was just very, very slow. So very avid cyclist. I also love to sail. That's during a water cannon race. So we like sail around, douse each other with water. But sailing is actually very vigorous as well. It gets your heart rate up when you're pulling in your sheets and tacking, et cetera. So doing a lot of things in my life that, you know, are demanding. And that's my quality of life that I enjoy. And I was losing all of this. I also practice yoga. And believe it or not, even the hot flow yoga that I do with the AF, I was not able to continue doing that. So there were a lot of things in my quality of life that were missing because of this disease. So how did I get here? All right, back in the summer of 2014 is when I started noticing things happening while I was sailing, when I was cycling. And I thought, oh, it's no big deal. Went to my GP, and he said, you better go see a cardiologist. Well, that freaked me out. Went to the cardiologist. We talked a bit, looked at my lifestyle, and he said, I think you're dehydrated. He goes, you know, you're waking up in the morning, you're drinking coffee, not drinking enough water. And then in the evening, maybe you have a cocktail or two and you go to bed. So you're dehydrating yourself, and then you're not drinking while you're sleeping, obviously. So you wake up dehydrated, and then you dehydrate yourself further by drinking coffee. So he said, let's do some more water, consciously drink water, and that knock back the alcohol in the evening. Let's see what happens. Not much happened. They fitted me with my first Holter monitor in February, and this was the type where I wore it all the time, and if I had an episode, I'd click a button to capture it. And I wore it, I believe, for 2 weeks. Clicked it a couple times where I thought I was having an episode. We did catch a couple episodes, but they weren't very dramatic. Also had an echocardiogram in February of 2015. That came out crystal clear. As you all know, heart issues are either plumbing or electrical. So obviously this was checking the electrical, that was checking the plumbing. Everything was flowing really nicely. I had, my arteries were not clogged, everything was great. So clearly this was an electrical issue. So in the, well, we did that. Mention 2KJP. I wanted to show this one quick. I got addicted to this little heart rate app on my iPhone, Heart Rate Free, I think it was. It allowed me to just put my finger over the flashlight and it would give me my pulse. And you can see how crazy wacky my heart rate was in December, or New Year's Eve of 2016, and even January 17th of the following year at different rates. Even at my low rate, I was just really wonky. And then at a super fast rate, I was even more wonky. I mean, it was kind of like, remember Animal from the Muppets? And he'd do that crazy thing with the drums? That's what was going on in my chest. That's what it felt like. That's about the only thing I can equate it to. So I was having difficulty with the cycling, with the sailing, and I didn't really know what to do. So make another appointment with the cardiologist, early January. And they finally went back and looked at the scripts from my first Holter monitor and said, okay, you've got AFib. So we were diagnosed, and they gave me diltiazem as a pill-in-pocket strategy, which never really did squat for me, to be honest. I could sense when I was having an episode. I could feel it, either that or I could, whatever this vein is in my bicep, I could see it pulsing like crazy. So I would just look, or I'd go like this and feel my pulse, and I'm like, all right, I'm fibbing. That's what we called it, I was fibbing. And so I'd pop a diltiazem, and I guess it's supposed to slow my heart rate. Like I said, it really didn't do much at all. So that was kind of a worthless strategy. So here I am, diagnosed, I've got a pocket of pills, and it's January of 2017. The day after this, we're going to Cuba. Communist country, be kind of fun, right? It was fun. However, sorry, Mom. When we went to Cuba, well, we did a cooking class. I had to have a cigar. We went and saw Fidel's tomb. I thought I was going to die in Cuba. We were in this Airbnb in Havana, and it's about 1 in the morning, and I'm in AFib, and I wake up, and I'm dizzy, and I cannot calm down. I'm getting tons of anxiety. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in this foreign country. I know a bit of Spanish. I know that the hospital is 3 blocks this way and 3 blocks that way. Okay, what am I gonna say? Okay, mi corazón no funcionar. I'm going through all this, and I'm like, this is not good. Thankfully, I let my traveling companions know ahead of time that, hey, I have this. If something should happen, we at least developed a plan to say, okay, worst case scenario, we got this Amex Gold, we can get airlifted from Havana to Miami and take care of it in Miami. But it was still really scary. So I'm like all dizzy, and I couldn't get rid of this. I tried my yogic breathing. The government turns off the power at 2 in the morning in Havana, so the fan stopped working. There was no air conditioning. The water coming out of the faucet wasn't very cold, so I couldn't do these things to kind of shock myself back into rhythm. So I had to just kind of hope for the best. And somehow I fell asleep, woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and all was better. But I mean, scared the living crap out of me, I have to say. It was not a fun thing. But I made it. Anyway, so I get back from Cuba and get back in touch with the cardiologist. They set me up with another Holter monitor. This one was the constant type. I wear it all the time, and it measures me. I mean, if I take it off, my phone rings, and they're like, put your monitor back on. Expensive little gizmo. $5 grand for a month, what that sucker cost. Wore it for the first 2 weeks, of course, just like when you go to the doctor, because, oh, my arm hurts. You go to the doctor, 2 days before you go to the doctor, the arm doesn't hurt anymore. Well, same thing with that. I get the Holter monitor. I'm all excited. We're going to capture this thing. We're going to figure it out. 2 weeks, nothing. So we get it extended for another 2 weeks. I had sent this email to, ironically, the nurse assistant of my first cardiologist is a client of ours, a food client. So I sent her this note. Hi, I really need to get into the EP soon. This AFib is happening too frequently and impacting my work and personal. I was a pain in the ass to be around, more than normal. I mean, if Melissa was here, she would attest. I was tired, I was ornery, I was cranky. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. I understand the doctors are at a conference. I really, anything you can do is going to help. So it wasn't getting better. Met with him. We discussed options of drugs versus the ablation. And I looked at the drugs. I'm like, okay, 3 different drugs, each of them 2 to 3 times a day. I'm 49 years old. No way. I'm not going to take pills the rest of my life. I don't take pills for virtually anything as it is right now. There was no way I was going to go that route. But ablation scared the hell out of me. Things I read about it was, we were talking RF at the time, that it was, you do it and maybe 2, 3 years later you'd have to do it again. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to try and be one and done. Where are my best options? So let me back up just a little bit. When I first got diagnosed with this, I reached out to Kathy and I said, hey, can you ask around at work and see if anybody has any recommendations out here in Pennsylvania of who I should go see? And she reached out to, I believe, the sales staff. I was a sales manager, district manager, something like that. And they said, go see this Rob Sangrigoli guy at Doylestown Hospital. So I saved that email because I was already down the road with this one cardiologist, and I had no reason to go and get another opinion at that time. He wasn't telling me anything that didn't bother me. It looked like he was taking care of me, which he did. And then, end of April, we get this direct mail in the mail from Doylestown Hospital, and there's this free talk on AFib. And Melissa said, why don't we go hear what this guy has to say? I'm like, that name sounds familiar. I mean, even though there's tons of Italians out in Pennsylvania, I mean, this name kind of stuck. So I went back to Kathy's email, and sure enough, it was the same guy. I said, all right, let's go see him. So we went and saw this guy, Rob Sangrigoli, good guy. We walk into this auditorium, a lot like this, day after my 49th birthday, and we're like the youngest people there. And the people that are all there look scared out of their minds, and they all look like any of them could stroke out at any moment. No, it was sad. It was scary sad. They were not healthy people. They were overweight. They were breathing like heavy. They were sweating. I'm like, this is not good. So, and the whole time he was kind of looking at me, and I knew he was wondering what the hell I was doing in there. So we went up and talked to him afterwards, and he said, why are you here? Do you have a parent or somebody you know that has AFib? And I said, I do. He goes, what? He goes, how old are you? I said, 49, yesterday. He goes, you need to come and talk to me. I said, all right, I'll try and get an appointment with you. So one thing that they did do at that appointment, which really, really helped, and this was my first entry into what you guys do, is they showed me this video. And that like opened my eyes. I was like, okay, this explains, this makes sense. And I gotta tell you, it really helped when I finally did tell my parents that I had this disease. Kathy and I sent them this link so they could see, what it was all about. So that stuff really works from the patient standpoint. So whoever does that animation stuff, keep that stuff going. That helps humanize all the tubes and the strings and the gizmos and the balloons and the supercharged air and all that. It helps like bring that down to, from 30,000 feet down to 300 feet. So keep doing that. So after that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go see this guy. So I call his office the next day, and they said, his first availability is October 2nd. I'm like, 6 months? I got to wait 6 months? Well, you could see somebody else in his office, in 4 months. So I made that appointment. I ended up canceling it because I'm like, no, I want to see this guy. Because there was just something about his presentation that just resonated with me. So, and the one thing he said to me in that short little one-on-one after his talk was, come see me, I want to give you your life back. I get a little choked up just thinking about it, but I mean, this guy, got it. He could just tell that my life as I knew it was ceasing to exist. I was not living. I was probably slowly dying when you think about it. So he said, I want to give you your life back. So it was worth the 6 months of hell because I was starting to go have AFib episodes 5 times a week. They would last anywhere from 3 to 18 hours at a time. They were awful. They're absolutely awful. October 2nd couldn't have come fast enough. Went in, got to see him, sat with him for like a half hour, which was just great. I mean, anytime a doctor takes more than 12 minutes with you, I think it's phenomenal. And he said, you need an ablation. I'm like, that fast? I said, you don't want to explore anything else? He goes, no, you need an ablation. I mentioned it before. He goes, I want to give you your life back. This is how it's going to work. And he pulled out his phone and showed me that same video that we all just watched. There's just a little longer version of it. And he said, that's what we're going to do. Let's schedule it. I said, let me think about it. And he goes, what do you need to think about? And I mean, this guy, he sees patients 1 day a week, and all the other days of the week, he's doing these procedures. So he's obviously seen them work, and he knows that this is going to work for me. I said, I just need to think about it. I said, so I went home. Honestly, 3 days later, I called him, and I said, let's do this. When can you get me in? And they took over. Oh, my God, it was unbelievable. They just did everything. And I was in there like within 3 weeks and was scheduled for the ablation. So Kathy took that wonderful shot. That was obviously pre-ablation. Anyway, so I go in like the Friday. This was a Tuesday that I had the ablation. I went in the Friday before, had the normal blood work, EKG. That Monday I had the transesophageal echo, which I guess was pretty cool because the person that did the echo had everybody in the cath lab come in and look at my heart because apparently it looked pretty cool. It was nice. And he goes, this is a great heart. I can't believe this guy's getting an ablation. So I had the ablation on the 14th. Kathy was there. And another one of your employees was just awesome, this J.J. Healy guy who was a clinical specialist. I think he's a sales rep now. He was like over the top awesome, meeting with Kathy and just kind of liaising between what I wanted to ask or what my questions were. And she was able to reach out to him and she could talk to my parents. It was huge. I know we got a little bit of a perk there, but that was awesome. It took the fear out of this totally. So I had the ablation on the 14th. Went on Xarelto for 60 days just as a precaution, and then I did baby aspirin for like 6 months after that. And then they said, well, you could continue on it if you want, but you don't have to, so I didn't. And that was January 23rd. This is my dramatic slide. So there I am the day before the ablation, and there I am 12 hours after I had not even 12 hours. That was 7:30 at night, so 11 hours after I had the ablation. Right back in normal rhythm, up, down, and I've been that way ever since. Pretty cool, huh? I mean, that's dramatic, I think. So, 50th birthday, spent $90,000 on my ablation, and I got a Medtronic cycling jersey. Yeah, we have this thing in my group of guys that I cycle with. Whenever it's somebody's birthday, however old you are, that's how many miles we ride that day. I wasn't obviously 55, but it's just how it ended up that it was 55 miles. It's 10% more for good luck, I guess. I ride with a lot of older guys, so it gets a little challenging at times. Oh shit, he's 75. It's going to be a long morning. But thankfully, I am able to do this again. I'm able to go up hills without having to stop. I can do that. I can cycle. I can do yoga. I can do everything that I couldn't do 3 years ago. So, a few thanks, obviously, to Sangregoli for all he did. If you're out there, Bob, thanks. I mentioned JJ earlier. He was awesome. Thanks, JJ, very much. My sister for being there and for liaisoning and all that. Melissa, who's not here, but putting up with all my shit. And she's done it a lot, and she was steadfast and supportive and helped me through it all. My parents, of course, even though I had to keep them in the dark. Mom's a little bitter about that yet, but I didn't have any answers to questions that I knew they were going to ask. So until I knew what was going on, I wasn't comfortable telling them. So Kathy and I had to keep it on the down low. Ooh, bingo. Keep it on the down low until I had answers, which I ultimately finally did. And then, I mentioned friends and other family on here, but the more I think about it, I really didn't tell anybody that I had this. I didn't think it was really that necessary. I found out through the grapevine after I told my parents that a childhood friend has AFib, and he's choosing to treat it with drugs because he's deathly afraid of ORs from prior experiences. But I really didn't tell a lot of my friends, but now that I'm doing this, and I'm gonna post this excerpt video on my social media stuff, and I'm gonna do everything I can to tell as many people as I can about my experience and about this product and how it changed my life. So thank you all. Keep up the good work. It's been a pleasure.
We might be able to get you one of these fashion-forward shirts if you want. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got this.
Match the inside of the coat.
Yeah. I actually have a little jacket envy there. I've
You gonna try it on?
got an event Saturday night. Oh yeah. If it fits, you're not getting it back till Sunday. I got the sometime. Yeah. That wouldn't last dancing, that's for sure. Not with my moves. Let's open up for some questions. Big Theo, thank you. It's great.
Sure,
it's
my pleasure.
Really fantastic. Any questions from the audience? The folks with the blue shirts are the folks you can really thank, because they're all with the AF organization for sure. Any questions? Yeah. Wait till we get you a microphone, please. Thanks.
You can't put a $5 word like aliophile or whatever on your first slide, not actually explain what that means.
Oh, wienephile. I'm sorry. Avid wine taster. I forgot about that one. Which, I learned that in some of my pre-research, they said, oh, red wine can trigger AFib. So I started just drinking white wine, which is boring. Not totally. Riesling's great, highly underappreciated, as well as vintage champagne, but that's not in my pay grade. But yeah, I love to taste wine, and I thought, oh God, if I have AFib and I can't drink red wine anymore, this is really gonna stink. So that was the wienephile, sorry. Thanks for pointing that out, I missed that one.
Yeah, you've been gone from Minnesota for a while. We drink beer.
Do plenty of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oktoberfest season,
It's coming up.
Yes.
Another question? Any other questions?
Anyone?
Yeah. We'll get you a microphone. Sorry. Thanks.
I was just wondering about those triggers. You said you were a coffee drinker and a wine drinker, but you felt it coming on. Were you able ever to track back some of those triggers that
one thing
you
I
then
did
avoided?
early on with at the advice of the cardiologist very early in like 2014 was I kept a food and drink log. I mean, I monitored everything that went into my pie hole. Didn't matter if it was coffee, water, booze, and then when I had an episode, I'd go episode, and then look back on it and see, was there a pattern? And I went through we tried a lot of different things. I went totally off coffee, which I shouldn't have done because I had a raging headache for a long time. I should have just gone to decaf, which is still caffeinated. We eliminated that. We eliminated booze for 30 days. I still had episodes. The stress thing, there was no way I wasn't able to pinpoint something that went on other than I could throw myself into AFib cycling. I definitely could do that. If I went gonzo on a hill and really went crazy, hammering up a hill, I could throw myself into AFib. That was the only one that I could really make happen. Because originally, he talked about maybe having a stress test, but he's like, no, you're just going to blow that test out of the water. He goes, that's not going to tell us anything. He goes, if you can go to sleep when your heart beats 180, a stress test is not going to give us any insight.
Yeah. It seems like there wasn't a long time, but I was wondering if any of the doctors ever mentioned the Link device to you. But it seemed like and it's an internal recorder.
Oh, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, a little bit of a conversation about that. But I was wondering, but it seemed like the time from you having symptoms to the time of diagnosis was relatively short.
Yeah, there was just it was weird. There was about an 8-month period where I seemed to be fine. And then it just came back like a lion.
Yeah.
It was like it was dormant for a while and it just came out and went,
Yeah. Corporate speak. Any other questions for Theo before we let him off
Told you I was animated.
the hot seat? Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Were there any other marketing materials aside from the video that helped impact your, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Were there any other materials, education materials that you received aside from the video that helped you understand your AFib and how it was impacting your life and why CryoBalloon was a good option for you?
You know, I did some self-research just poking around on the internet. You know, I was part of some discussion group for a while, which helped. But as far as materials go, I mean, thankfully there's one YouTube video out there that, I was telling you about this yesterday, that it was actually an OR video, and they show him shoving the tube up this guy's groin. I'm like, thank God I didn't see that before I had the ablation. I would have been like, no way, I'm out of here, you know? But no, the long version of that animated video was great. But I didn't receive anything else. And I don't know if it would have helped. I'm a visual learner, so that was probably the best thing for me. You know, I read a lot, and it was, like I said, it was just good to talk to other people and get some ideas about. But no one that I talked to had done the cryo. You know, I know you said there's, what, 400,000 that you've done or something like that?
Yeah.
Surprised I haven't run into somebody, but I had a lot of people that had done RF multiple times. So I was like, no.
Thank you.
You bet.
We probably have time for one last question, if there's another question. Yeah, hey.
Theo, you shared this morning, thanks, Doc, wow. You shared this morning a little bit about your recovery and
Yes.
what the experience has been like since then. Maybe you can share with everyone. I think it was really helpful to hear your words there.
Oh, okay, sure. So you saw that slide where, you know, post-ablation, I went into normal rhythm. I was at like 62 beats a minute. My resting heart rate really jumped for a long period of time post-ablation, which I was assured by JJ that was completely normal. But for someone whose resting heart rate was always in the, you know, 50, 60 range, to have my resting heart rate be 85, 90 was really difficult and, you know, worrisome, I guess. It was tough to adjust to it. And it took a long time for that to normalize. It took me about a good 5 months, I think, before I realized that it was finally back. And, you know, this morning when I thought, oh, just for giggles, I'm going to test my resting heart rate right when I wake up, and it was 52. So it was pretty good. Was that what you were going for on that? But yeah, so that was, I had that recovery. So that took a little bit longer than I thought it would. It wasn't a problem. It just it was a little drawn out, and it was a little unexpected. But it was all good now.
Great. Well, maybe one last question from me, and that was, we were cooking dinner last night, and we use a lot of coconut oil, but my wife just said that coconut oil is now bad.
It's bad stuff.
So we stopped using coconut oil.
Right.
What happened there? What happened to the coconut oil?
You want to use grapeseed oil. That's your best bet.
Yeah, it's just got a kind of a funky flavor there, right?
No, grapeseed oil is neutral. Grapeseed oil is neutral.
Okay.
It's got a high heat tolerance, so you can saute it without.
Yeah.
But no, the coconut oil, they just realized that it's got a lot of fatty acids in it that were not good.
Yeah. Okay. It's now out of the pantry at the Litticoat household. So
that's good.
Well, so good. Well, Theo, you were great.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you.
John.
And here's your jacket. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Couldn't have been better. Yeah, really great. You too. Thanks.